As a child, the house made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't put into words. Now, as a 17-year-old, I knew exactly what those words were. I was afraid of the house.
One of the best things about this PS4, PS5 kind of inter-era crossover is that games that you've bought on PlayStation 4 sometimes get a free PlayStation 5 upgrade, and you're able to dive in and experience a game a second time around and really dive into why you loved it. This is what's just happened with me with What Remains of Edith Finch, which recently got a PS5 free upgrade to anyone that bought it on PS4. This game is an absolute masterpiece in storytelling, and it's one of the best walking simulator style games that's out there, in my personal opinion. The idea behind this is that you return back to the Finch's home, and as Edith, you'll be wandering around looking at all of the history of your previous family members in your kind of dynasty or immediate family tree, and exploring what happened to them, because she's the last one of her family left. Spoiler alert, everyone meets an untimely end, and you get to experience what happened through their eyes as things occur. Now, it's atmospheric more than horror. It's spooky and almost like a fable telling, rather than it being scary in any way, shape or form. But what really works here is the various different ways that stories are told that reflect the different characters. So some of them are a bit more dreamy and wistful. One of them, which is the absolute trauma of the series, is of you playing as a toddler in the bath. I will never look at bath times in games the same again. You've also got some of the more creepier ones or sinister ones where you turn into different animals, or that someone gets very greedy and they become a snake that just starts to eat up everything. And you start to wonder exactly where story meets mythical legend, and it all kind of starts to merge in together. As you do this, you're wandering around the Finch's house, and that is a storytelling masterpiece in itself as well, because every room is a character, and inside that room also is usually a Finch, and where they've left an indelible mark on the world that they've now left behind. And particularly when you start to walk outside into the grounds of the house and see the graveyard where lots of them have been buried, for example, or the fact that this house seems to have never-ending additional structures balancing on top, almost toppling over. It's just such a surreal and fascinating experience that even though it's not one of those walking simulators where you go in and read loads and loads and loads of text and everything's pick-upable, the world feels so lived in and like a canvas for character that you can't help but just take your time wandering around. Because of that, what can be finished in about 90 minutes will take you probably about 2.5, 3 hours maybe, depending on how fast or slow you are. If you bomb through this game, you probably can do it in just around an hour. But in doing so, you're almost missing the point of sitting with each of the characters, seeing how their stories unfold and develop. And through excellent graphics, superb voiceovers, and a soundtrack that is subtle in all of the right places, but then becomes quite sweeping and cinematic in the moments where the big hammers hit home. It just is a masterpiece of storytelling. And if you've never played a walking simulator before, there are a couple up there that I would genuinely recommend as real good starters. But What Remains of Edith Finch kind of is that bridge point between a walking simulator where you go around and a story happens to you versus there being platformy elements, because each story sees you doing something, so you're never passive in the experience. Some of it might just be on a swing, for example, going back and forth with the analog stick. Then there's the ones where you're playing as a bird, for example, and you're trying to work out how to swoop down and catch rabbits. Another one has you as a cat wandering around in trees. Then there's others that are a little bit more abstract-y, I guess. Nothing's ever too difficult, but it's just about going around with your eyes open and experiencing what is a walking simulator, feeling much more interactive than perhaps most other walking simulators are. So for me, this is the ideal bridger for you to start looking at getting into walking simulator games if you're curious, but maybe come across walking simulators and think, it's not real gameplay. This is a good bridger of the gap. What Remains of Edith Finch, I think, is one of those pinnacles of the walking simulator genre. I'd recommend it to anyone that enjoys story and atmosphere and likes to ponder on things, I think, that will leave a mark on you afterwards. And yeah, this is one of those all-time classics that I would recommend anyone to play. What Remains of Edith Finch, out now. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/Higher Plane Network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.